I've got the ATF-DX Riser here and the MXT-XP Limbs as well in both foam and wood, and that's what we're going to be reviewing today on the channel.
You're watching the Kaminski YouTube channel.
So, big thanks to Win&Win first off for sending me this equipment to allow me to test it and show you guys the close-ups of what they've got going on for 2023. I really appreciate them sending me stuff. But I'm not going to let that affect the way I review these bows, just like I don't do on any of my reviews on this channel, giving you the inside look and my honest feedback as to what I think about the actual equipment itself. So, this is a beautiful looking riser. I've already taken it out of the box, and I did a little teaser video earlier for this one, earlier in the week that is, on my YouTube in the shorts section, just playing with it, trying it out to see and, you know, give you guys a little bit early access, inside views as to what I'm doing and what I'm working on. So, I've already looked at this and put my hands on it a little bit. Not very much in the way of detailed looks at it, but now that I'm actually looking at it for the first time very, very closely, this is super, super sharp. I mean, everything about it that I can look at just glancing at it looks phenomenal. And it is quite different from the ATF itself. The shapes through here, there's a lot more finishing put into this riser actually. There's beveled edges on the insides, on the cross hatching here. Unlike what we've seen before, there's beveling. Everything looks a lot cleaner. I don't see those machine marks on the inside like some of the previous of these ATF X's had, but even the inside of the riser down on the bottom, there's just these really, really nice chamfered edges that just really kind of set this thing apart from the ATF itself and give it a lot different look to it. And it feels a lot thinner through the grip here than just about any Win&Win I've ever had in my hands, which I really like actually. I'm a huge fan of having a little bit thinner riser there. I just feel like I have a lot less opportunity to manipulate it and torque it and, you know, just affect the actual performance of the bow. There's a lot that has changed and a lot that is different on this bow itself. It looks like the tiller bolts, the limb bolts, now have stops on them. Down inside the riser right there, it looks like that shoulder will mate up with the riser and actually bottom out and stop the limb bolt from going all the way in, giving a max in range, which is the same on the Meta DX itself. This is slightly different than the Meta DX. It only has the 2 dampeners in it instead of the 3, because the carbon bow has a dampener here, and then the 2 dampeners top and bottom. But it's the same Matthews style harmonic dampener. You'll actually be able to remove these if you wanted to alter and change the balance. You could just push and pull them right out of the riser itself. The dovetail blocks are quite different this year, very similar to the Hoyts actually, which is very interesting, you know. Right here you'll see where the dovetail slams in and like jams in place when it gets, you know, slid down into it. There's this bolt-on piece just like there is on the new formula from Hoyt. So it's interesting because this looks like some sort of plastic, like Delrin, something like that. I'm gonna actually see if I can scratch the surface of it and see if it is plastic. You know, the surface, that doesn't matter at all. Yeah, it's soft. It's definitely some sort of plastic or polymer or something. You can see I used a countersink bit there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but basically pushed hard onto it and kind of moved back and forth, and it scribed it a bit, and it's soft. I can feel that it's soft. So it's definitely made of some sort of plastic or polymer. Don't know how long those things will last. Hopefully they last a long time, or they'll have replacements if those items wear. That's just different, because it's kind of funny, you know, looking at what has come out with Win&Win and Hoyt in both 2023. This is a different thing in both risers. I wonder who came up with it first. Hoyt released it first, but I don't know who came up with it first. I don't know. And also, it's funny that the limbs are called XP, because I think it's the Formula XP. No, it's the Formula XD. So that was close. It's just funny. They're kind of following each other as far as the naming and little changes here or there as far as that's concerned. So it's just interesting to notice and make note of that. So this is the 25-inch ATF-DX Riser, and it's in graphite black, which is a very sharp looking color. I'm always one to pick these more of a matte, stealthy, darker finish personally. I never request colors actually when people are sending me equipment. I just tell them to send me stuff that they think will look best on camera. And I think Win&Win just had these black risers available soonest, so they sent me one. It's got the, I don't know what they call it, but vertical height adjuster plate deal. The grip is very different. It's a lot flatter compared to most Win&Win grips, meaning this surface is just almost dead flat. There's very little slope and kind of like, you know, just overall angle to it. I'm just glad that companies are starting to make a little bit better grips that are a lot more user-friendly. And this one would be a pretty good, safe starter grip to shoot from. It's not bad. It allows you to put your hand in a decent place, so I'm happy to see that. Pretty standard amount of bushings on the riser. 3 in the front, 1 below the grip, 2 on the top and bottom, and then 1 in the back of the riser. And overall, you know, it looks pretty dang good. Pretty standard for a Win&Win, but definitely one of the better finished ones I've ever seen, because I see no real machine issues to really mention or note. Very small tooling marks if you can see anything inside that riser. There's 1 line there, a line there, and where, you know, they go in and do the internal dimensions and kind of change those a little bit, you can see a little bit of, you know, change in the tolerance as far as the machine tooling paths are concerned. But that's only on the bottom. The top is pretty much perfect. Tiny little issues. But it's like, yeah, you should be able to see it through there. Very small, if anything, and literally nothing to note. It's not even a concern. It looks like this is tumbled or shot peen blasted or something and then anodized, so it has a little bit of a matte-ish sheen to it. So that's the riser. So I'm going to set that aside, and then we'll look and see what else came in the box. Towel, some tools, looks like some other stickers that I'm not used to or something inside of the little tool kit here. A riser protector, a luggage tag bag deal, some manuals, and oh, there's some new info here. Interesting. So, cool. So now we have some data, some information here on the actual MXT-DX, which would also include the ATF-DX rest plate. And it tells you what the settings mean, each one, as far as basic settings and, you know, just positions that they've used over the years. So that's cool. I'm glad to see a little bit more information supplied here. And then also there's this meta cap fitting instructions. I've not seen this before yet either. It's referencing the center dampener on the actual MXT-DX, which I have over here, this dampener here. It's referencing that because it looks like, interesting. So what it's telling you is that the toolkit that comes with it, there's these essentially like dummy little caps here that appear to be made out of machined aluminum or something. And so what you can do is you can basically, say if you wanted to change the balance of the bow, the weight of the bow, whatever, you take your harmonic dampener, you pop it out of the riser, and then you take the actual metal weighted piece, this chunk here, set that aside, take your small little machined aluminum bit that came with it, put it in place so it weighs less, and then stick the dampener back in the bow itself to make it a little bit lighter and to change the balance of the riser itself. So that's kind of neat because, let's see here, we'll test it with the one in the bottom, finger on the pivot point of the grip. It's barely bottom pocket heavy. That's actually my preference of a balance point. Take that back out, throw the big weight back in it, get it back in place. Now we'll check the balance again. Still slightly bottom pocket heavy, but not nearly as much. So it does change a little bit, and it tells you here the end dampeners weigh 32 grams. The little aluminum holder pieces basically are 9 grams. So you're removing a decent amount of weight when you change both of them out. So that's just nice. They're starting to supply a little bit more information with their actual equipment. So that's good to see, because sometimes I get a little bit confused, and I start asking questions before answers are received. So the different plates in that, as well as the caps, plus what also came in this little bag here. Obviously your clicker plate extension, which we'll put on, but we've got some spare pieces here for those dovetail engagement deals. And definitely it is made out of some sort of machined plastic. It appears to be Delrin, and you can get a closer look here as to what it looks like from the back side, and you can see machine marks, so it's definitely machined, and that's the actual piece itself. So they do come with spare pieces. That's nice to see, because sometimes wear items aren't actually available through manufacturers. So I'm glad to see that it comes with some spare bits. And your standard Allen wrenches, clicker plate screw with a Phillips head screw, and the standard kit. All right, now I'm going to unbox the actual limbs. Inside of one of them here, the foam set of limbs comes with a hat, comes with stickers, manuals, and a wristband. This is a white hat, and it's actually not too bad. It's got some dry fit type feel to it. It's based on some sort of golf design hat, so it's a nice fitting hat, I'm sure. So again, these are the MXT-XP foam cores that I've got here. I have the wood cores also behind me, but these are very, very glossy, extremely glossy, yet a very thin coat of gloss. It's not very heavily painted on, so I'm glad to see that. I always get cautious when I look at these glossy limbs to see what's going on with it, in case there's some sort of, you build up a clear coat and issues with it peeling or cracking or chipping over time, but I suspect that won't be an issue with these Win&Win limbs. These are super shiny, but right on par with just about what I would expect out of Win&Win's equipment here. The graphics look pretty good. They wrap around the sides of the limbs themselves, so you can see how the front wraps around the sides and continues to the back. So that is different. That's not something that is standard on the Win&Win limbs themselves. So to see the graphics kind of wrap around and for them to paint the sides of the limbs, that's new. Usually you can see the layers laid up in the limb itself, but not on this set here. You can even see the WeaWiz logos wrapped around too. So it's very sharp looking. I like the look of the limbs themselves. Torsionally, as far as stability is concerned, they feel very, very, very stiff. Be very interested to put them on my little rig and check out the torsional rigidity of them, which I will eventually. Maybe I'll have time to slip this in either later in this video or in another one. I've got a MXT-10 limb here. So as you can tell, they've gotten rid of the little dampener thing in the front. That's gone. I want to see if the curves are similar or the same. If they're roughly the same curve, I can expect the way they draw to be about the same. And they're slightly less recurve, actually. The limb towards you is the MXT-XP limb. And I'm comparing it here against the MXT-10. Which one's the yellow one? Wood core. They're the same, so it shouldn't matter. But yeah, they're definitely less recurve. So I expect them to stack, quote unquote, a little bit more than the MXT-10 limbs. So it'll be interesting to get some draw force curves and see how they compare. The wood limbs, I'm going to guess, are going to be the same exact things. Yep, just with yellow lettering instead of red. Red signifies foam. Yellow seems to signify wood. So it's the same graphics. It's just got yellow Win&Wins, yellow graphics all over the place, and it's the same otherwise. So as far as the curves are concerned, same curves across the XP lineup. And I've got a different top and bottom limb here. That's why the graphics on the back are slightly different and the graphics on the front are reversed. So it's just because I've got a top and a bottom limb here. And it says it has heat reflective cool pigments on the limb. I just noticed that right there. Don't know what that means. I'd like a little bit of data on that personally to know what the actual tech is or whatnot. You can tell that this isn't painted. All the graphics are probably some sort of a wrap. Don't know if it's vinyl. I don't know what it is. And the reason I can tell that it is there is because on the corner of the limb itself, it's supposed to line up perfectly. Obviously, these are probably done by hand, and you can tell here on the side of the limb, when it goes to the side to the front, there's a little bit of a mismatched coloring there. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's pretty hard to see on that limb. It's a little bit easier to see on the top where it wraps around. You can see how it's a little mismatched there. And on these other set, on the same corner, right there, you can see a slight gap. So it's just barely missing as far as lining up on the edges are concerned. It's a very difficult thing to do because what they're trying to do is to get the graphics to match on a corner to hide the seam, essentially. And they've done a good job. Otherwise, it's just a tiny, tiny bit off. The limb tips themselves, compared to the MXT-10s, are fairly similar in shape. The MXT-XPs are possibly a little bit beefier, a little bit fatter. Yeah, they look a little bit fatter, both from the front. This is the XP, this is the MXT-10. You can see how it's a little thinner through the middle section. The actual tip is a little smaller. And also from the front side, you can see as well. This again is the XP. It's a little bit smaller than the 10s. I ordered 2-pound heavier limbs on accident, so I can't quite compare apples to apples as far as weighing these out and checking the mass. I was really hoping that I would have ordered the same. Oops, I made a mistake. So we'll just have to deal with it, and hopefully I'll be strong enough to get these limbs back. All right, now that I've showed you the limb and the riser itself, or the limbs and the riser, I'm going to do my typical test. Turn the limbs around backwards, push them into the actual limb bolt. Excellent fit, nice and snug. Won't come out of the top or the bottom. Very firm, very typical of Win&Win. I am really happy with their tolerances as far as that's concerned. Let's see how the engagement is. Very crisp, very solid. Very, very minimal as far as how much movement is concerned, and it's very solid. Does not want to move. I'm really happy with the fit and finish of that. I'm not sure what limbs I'm going to put on this bow yet. I always like the snappiness of the foam, but the woods always feel a little bit more calm and like less harsh after the shot, but I love the snappiness of the foam. So I'm probably leaning towards putting foam limbs on this riser to start, but what I am going to do with these limbs and this riser is I'm going to do a wood versus foam shootout. Very similar to my speed test shootout where I compared a Win&Win MXT-10, a Hoyt Velos, and an Uka SX Plus limb and kind of put them against each other to see which one's faster and more efficient with draw force curves and lots of data. So I'm going to do the same thing with wood versus foam. So if you're interested in that, please do subscribe and hit that notification bell because you'll be notified when I upload that video. The speed shootout video is very popular, and I'm really excited to do the foam versus wood version as well because that's like an age-old question that's not been officially settled as far as data is concerned, at least not that I've seen anywhere. So I'm excited to bring you that, and I can't wait to do that in the future, but first I want to get this bow set up, and I want to shoot it a little bit to get an idea of what it feels like. Not bad, and it's actually a well-fitting hat. It's got a little bit of stretch to it, so I'm happy with that one. So first impressions, just stringing it there. The riser right here is way less meaty compared to the ATF-X, and it's very thin. Same thing within that grip area, like I said before. It's a much smaller package, a lot thinner, Just different. Probably because a lot of the weight that was shaved out of here went into the dampeners themselves. If you're interested in learning how I tune and set up my Olympic-style recurve bows, grab this manual here. It's called Tuning for Performance. It's available on my website, Kaminski.com. I'll have links in the description below and a card at the top up there. If you're interested in picking up one of these, I ship them worldwide, and I will also have a link to Amazon in case you're interested in grabbing it there. Basically, I take you through my method step by step from start to finish, just like this, out of the box, and then going to compete with it at World Championships or the Olympic Games. Basically just prepping the bow as best as possible to get it ready to shoot as high scores as it can. So first impressions, just looking at it, drawing it back, the tiller's not set right, the brace height's off, you know, my stabilizers aren't on or any of those things. But it is heavier, although these are 2-pound heavier limbs than I meant to order, so I'll have to deal with that. However, they feel like a win-and-win. You know, they feel like they basically come on as expected. They're definitely not as smooth, just first impressions compared to the MXT-10s. Smooth meaning it feels like it's pretty light through here, and then it really starts to build, and it's just not necessarily running into like a brick wall or anything. It's not stacking by any means. It just definitely is not as smooth as far as, you know, how easy it is to draw through the clicker. So if you like a little bit more of a firm feel through the clicker, I think these limbs will be right up your alley, because it does feel a little bit different, although, like I said, no stabilizers on makes a big difference as far as what the bow feels like. So as usual, I'm just going to use my biter blocks. I'm very comfortable with those. I'll also have links in the description for all the tools that I'm using in this video, in case you don't have anything yet yourself. Really close, just a little off, top and bottom, just barely, kind of normal. I've never had a bow perfect, although just about all the win-and-wins that I've set up have been a lot closer than most bows out of the box. Okay, just like that. Nothing too difficult, pretty easy, straightforward, standard win-and-win alignment process. Very easy. I'm very comfortable with these win-and-wins. I've been aligning them for a few years now. So yeah, it's just as expected. So I'm glad to see that hasn't changed one bit. And while I'm at it, I'm going to get everything lined up. I'm going to assume I'm going to put 410s on here, because I imagine that's what I'll need to shoot. 410x10. And the 450s are still a smidge outside of center, which is exactly what I like to see. So it's really, really close, and I'm happy with that. Last thing to do is to set my brace height and my tiller, make sure that's all good to go. I'm a smidge low here. I'm just about 22 centimeters on the brace height. So I'm going to bump that up to my standard, roughly 22.5, just because that's where it always seems to feel good, and where win-and-win bows just seem to be the happiest for me as far as 25 long combos are concerned. These limbs don't move around in the bow at all. They're not flopping around, not rattling as I'm stringing and unstringing. I have very little fear of these limbs coming out of the bow at all. It's great. All right, 8 7/8, which is roughly 22.5 centimeters. Top tiller, 7 3/8 and 7 1/4. So actually I'm an 1/8 inch shorter on the bottom. Just actually a smidge under 7 1/4, but also a smidge under 7 3/8. So I'm not quite at my 1/8 inch split that I like. Limb bolts came nice and tight, which is great. Yes, you can unstring your bow while making adjustments, but I'm making pretty small adjustments. Just about perfect. I'm going to back that back just a little bit. That was the finish on the limb clicking because of the tiller bolts being moved. Lots of creaking and cracking going on as I'm locking everything down, but the limb bolts aren't moving, so that's good. Little pro tip is when you have a quick disconnect, don't put it straight up and down. Due to the forces of the bow and how it vibrates and rattles and stuff, the stabilizer will loosen up way more if you have that quick disconnect perfectly vertical Obviously, if you're shooting a down angle, you can't really adjust those as far as that's concerned. Some of them you can, though, I suppose. There's a couple of brands out there that allow that. But basically, you can see how I have my quick disconnect slightly off to the side. It just basically prevents the stabilizer from rattling loose because the bow's main action after the shot is up and down perfectly straight. All right, finally, we're out here outside, and I'm getting ready to shoot here at 30 meters. I have a camera running downrange so you'll be able to see the impact points the whole time. Now, normally, I swap these stock grips out for my own personal grips that are available at Archery, but this is a new core design, a new design of the actual bow, so that means I have no grips that will fit this riser, and no Win&Win grips will fit this riser either. So when you're buying this riser, keep that in mind that you can't take your ATF, your ATF-X, or even your MXT-DX grips and put them on this ATF-DX riser. It's a totally different grip system, and right now, RS at Archery is still working on developing that. Once his riser comes in, he says he'll have grips available for sale within a day or so. So, anyway, I'm using the stock grip here, even though I would much prefer my own grip. But if you're still interested in Archery grips, especially for the ATF-DX in the future, once they're available, if you use code Kaminski at checkout, you get 10% off. Plus, I have a link in the description below, which is an affiliate link, and it does help this channel out when you purchase grips through that link. So, now what I'm going to do, seeing how everything's all set up and I'm ready to go, I'm going to shoot a few arrows here at 30 meters. That is a 40 centimeter face down range, just for reference. And like I said, I'll roll the camera and show you the impact points the whole time, and I'm going to get warmed up before I start tuning it. So I've got a mix of 410s and 450s in my quiver here. I don't know which one I'll need, so I'll end up just shooting them both for now. Whew. Now, I don't have my clicker set. I definitely don't have very much shooting strength. I have not shot basically at all in quite some time now. So forgive my shaking as this video progresses. It'll only get worse from here. The bow does feel pretty dang good right away out of the box. Usually it takes me a little bit of time to get the feel of the bow set right based on, parameters that I put into the system, like brace height, tiller split, actual tune, and whatnot. But so far it actually feels pretty good, and there's not much in the way of vibration out of the box. Definitely is a lot stiffer through the clicker. I would not say it stacks because it still is not a stacking set of limbs. It just is a lot more firm and arguably more stable through the clicker zone compared to the MXT-10 limbs, in my opinion. But it's not too stiff. My draw length's somewhere in the neighborhood of 29.5 inches, just for reference. Again, long limbs on a 25-inch riser. Grip feels okay. My hand's pretty planted and it's not slipping at all, so it's a workable stock grip. Alright, I'm going to shoot a bear shaft, a 450. Yeah, so those are 450s. So we're going to shoot the 450 bear shaft first and see what it does. Not too bad, just slightly weak and a bit of a low knocking point. I'm going to shoot a couple of these 410s and a bear shaft just to see. Yeah, those don't fly nearly as good as the 450s. Yeah, way stiff. a full spine off. The 450s are the way to go. So I will get back here, adjust my draw weight to compensate, bump my knocking point a little bit, or my rest, one or the other, and get this thing dialed in. But first initial impressions of this bow, this ATF-DX and the MXT-XP Limbs are, it feels good. Very low residual vibration. It has a good punch out of the hand. They are foam limbs, so I would expect no less. It does punch out of the hand and it jumps really hard. Definitely, I can feel the difference between the 450s and the 410s. The 450s, the bow felt much happier, but we'll see what happens as I dial in the tune. There's a little bit of, and it's totally me, I can feel the bow wanting to wander a little bit as far as, you know, after the shot, depending on if my tension and direction is there or not into the grip. So I think that just comes down to me personally, and you know, this grip is not ideal as far as my interface with the bow is concerned. But the sound is really, really nice. It's very quiet. It's very Korean-esque, if that makes sense to people who have shot over the years or watched a lot of people shoot on YouTube or at tournaments. It sounds like a Korean setup. I am using 652 here as far as a string material, 20 strands, and standard brace height for me, so I expect it to sound this way. But it is just something to note that it just sounds the part. It sounds really good after the shot. No humming, no clacking, no real vibration or harsh shaking or wobbling. It is quite good, in my opinion. It's gonna get better, I imagine. So I'm gonna go through the tuning process and see what we come up with. I'm gonna take about a half of a turn to 3/4 of a turn off of my limb bolts here. Equal top and bottom, so I just lower the draw weight. All right, so something different. They think they changed their limb bolt design because doesn't want to turn very easy with the bowstrung. Unfortunately, I just really like the convenience of doing everything with the bowstrung. So the limb bolts are definitely a different design, and it appears that I don't know if they don't have any anti-seize or something like that in there, so it might be smart for me to throw it in there if I'm going to adjust the draw weight when it is strung up. So now I'm just going to verify that my tiller is still acceptable. And also, even with the bow strung, as I go to tighten the collet lock, the limb bolts want to spin. So pay attention to that, because you might need 2 sets of Allen wrenches in your quiver. It comes with 2 Allen keys anyway, so you'll be able to hold the limb bolt still while you're locking the lock. I really wish I didn't have to do this, because sometimes you're in a hurry and you only grab 1 Allen wrench, and by the time you tighten the lock, or what you think is tightening it, you're just spinning the limb bolt in the front, and then you got to readjust and do everything all over again. So here's N2. I'm going to shoot a bunch of flet shafts, see if I can get dialed in as far as sight settings are concerned, and then shoot a bare shaft. Less hummy, there's less vibration, so like I said, it already starts to feel a bit more refined. I feel almost no vibration in the grip after the arrow's gone. After that first initial pop out of the hand, I really feel basically next to nothing as far as feedback's concerned. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. It's personal preference. Personally, I like a little bit of feedback. Time will tell how much feedback this gives me when I make, you know, good or bad shots. Still looks like a bit of a low knocking point, but the tune seems to be good. So going to keep dialing it in and see how much better we can make this thing feel. Like I said, I basically feel nothing in the grip after the shot. I can still feel, you know, the bow's reaction and its movement, but I can't feel much in the way of any harmonics in the riser. It is very, very dead. It still sounds to me like an aluminum riser, but it feels more like a carbon riser now because of the dampeners. So what I did was bump my rest down because these knocking points are permanent ones, and I don't know how much I'll be able to move them, if I can at all. So we'll see if the rest going down is going to be enough. Yeah, I'd say before the arrow is even halfway down range, the vibration's dead. Because I still have my index finger resting on the front of the riser, so I can feel what it's doing. And by the time the arrow hits 15 meters or so, it stops vibrating. It's dead. It's impressive. That one was a little bit longer. You could hear it. The hum was going on for much longer. It was not as good of a shot, so happy to report I do get some feedback in the bow itself. All right, now bear shaft. Pretty close, a little bit on the stiff side. So I'm gonna get back here, bump the draw weight up a smidge, and I'll probably lower my tiller split just a little bit. That'll bring that bear shaft down just a little bit more, because if you think of it, more tiller split means the bottom limb is shorter, which actually lowers the knocking point when that bottom limb's shorter. When the bottom limb is bigger, it raises the knocking point. So it's one way to tune and kind of fudge the tune a little bit. So it's not my favorite way to do it, but I really don't want to retie knocking points. The bow feels happy anyway, so I'm gonna fudge it a little bit on my end. I'll probably try to bump the knocking points and see if I can at all, but it's super close right now. So I looked at the arrow impact, and the bear shaft was basically right in there. It just kicked sideways due to hitting a hole, funny hole basically. And so I basically am just going up a very tiny amount in draw weight, maybe 1/8 of a turn, and the height of the bear shaft itself was acceptable. It was in the top part of the group, but you know, I'm not shooting the greatest, so I've got to kind of have healthy expectations as to what my performance will be. When I shoot it halfway decent, it's just straight to the target and it dies halfway. It's crazy. Crazy how little vibrations in an aluminum riser. It's very different because usually it has a little bit of resonance, and it may be less vibration on better risers, better aluminum risers. Usually less overall vibration, but the duration of it's usually fairly long, especially compared to a carbon riser. But like I said, this one's, it just dies super, super fast. All right. I mean, it's really close. The tune's so close. I do need to adjust the knocking point because it still is making the bear shafts hit slightly high, but the tune overall is pretty much dead on. I mean, that bear shaft flew just about like a dart. It hit a tad on the stiff side. I've got a little bit of excess plunger tension, if you ask me, so I do need to dial it in a little bit more. My desire to get a perfect tune is exceeding my current shooting conditions, so I just got to call it there. I'm not going to get it any closer. It's basically all in the gold at 30 meters here on a 40 centimeter face. I mean, it's pretty much fine. It's slightly stiff and slightly too low of a knocking point, but by the tiniest of margins, and I'm not confident in my consistency from arrow to arrow, so I think that I'm just going to call it there. I will come back and revisit this another day when I am going to be doing the wood versus foam shootout, because I want to give it, really, really equal apples to apples comparisons, so that way there's just no difference as far as like how I'm treating the systems between the two different bows that I'll be shooting. I want to talk about how the limbs feel through the clicker. Like I said, I wanted to talk more about that. So what I mean by I might like them more if I was in shape is if I was confident in my shot, if I was comfortable with what I was doing, if I felt like I was on top of my game, or at least had, more shooting stamina, energy, proficiency, whatever you want to call it. I think I would love these limbs because they do feel more stable at full draw compared to the MXT-10 limbs, in my opinion. The MXT-10s are very easy to get through the clicker, which is very forgiving when you really need to get it through the clicker without having to try so hard. It just feels like, due to where I'm at now, I'm a little weaker, right? So I don't quite have that strength and stability that I'm used to having. So when I'm going against a slightly stiffer limb, it feels like it's a bit tougher to manage to make it happen, to get through the clicker and to just overall feel confident while at full draw. Despite the stability, it feels like it almost fights me a little bit to get through that clicker because I'm that out of shape. So this could be just a complete guess. It's not necessarily something I can prove unless I get back into shape and then compare the two risers, or limbs rather. That aside, what do I feel about the Win&Win ATF-DX and the the MXT-XP Limbs? So many letters these days in archery equipment. I really like it a lot. I like it better than the ATF-X. The ATF-X, it feels good, it jumps good. I have very little complaints about the ATF-X. I like the ATF-DX better through here. Thinner grip area, it feels better in the hand. I like the thinness of the riser. It's a lot less bulky and clunky, for lack of better terms. But the feedback department, there's a lot less than typical standard aluminum risers. Some of that is probably the dampeners, of course, but I do like the features of the dampeners. It just kills vibration. So if you deal with like tennis elbow or anything like that, as far as that's concerned, elbow pain when shooting, riser generally with less vibration in it will affect that much less, and that pain much less. At least it'll spike it less. So I think overall, this is a better bow than the ATF-X in my opinion. The limbs definitely, I think, are more stable. They're super quiet. They sound great. And react really, really well. It launches hard out of the hand, jumps super straight, and like the riser and limb combination, it just kills all vibration before the arrow's even halfway down range here at 30. So I like that a lot. Pros, fit and finish, top notch, can't complain. The only thing would be the limb bolt action, meaning it's not the same. It feels different. It feels like it's more of a positive locking system, so maybe they adjusted the limb bolts themselves a little bit. They have a stop on it now all the way down, which I like. But it just, when I go to tighten the limb bolt, it spins it even when the bow is strung. I don't like that feature. I don't like having to use 2 Allen wrenches. It's just something that I'm just not a fan of. I want to pull one wrench out of my quiver, tighten and loosen, and be done with it, because sometimes you'll lose Allen wrenches or people don't give them back. Negatives, there's that on the riser, and the graphics don't line up perfectly on the corner as far as the seam's concerned on the limbs. But otherwise, I don't have any complaints about the limbs, and I have no other complaints at all about the system. I'm a little disappointed that the grip is different. I really wish that Win&Win would just pick a grip design and stick with that, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to have to go buy another grip or modify another grip, because the grips that you might love just won't fit on the bow anymore. I don't like that, and I wish it was the same. Maybe there's a reason behind that. Maybe they needed to adjust it based on the thinness that they created here by, making everything skinnier and smaller. And it almost feels like a Hoyt now because it's so thin through the handle. So I just really like it personally. The Vertitune plates, or whatever they want to call them, totally cool. I like them. The actual adjustment, limb alignment blocks and all that's all the same, except for that one piece that's made out of plastic now, just like Hoyt's is made out of brass. So it's just interesting to see that both companies did that in the same year. Now, if I remove the limbs and check any sort of wear and tear or anything like that, now I've shot some arrows here. You've only seen the amount of arrows that I've shot. I haven't shot more or anything like that. And if I look at the limb, I see basically nothing going on here because their clear coat, just like always, is top notch. There's a little bit of markings down there where it pushes on the limb adjustment area down through there, the block, and on the tip you can see a little bit of marring, I guess, maybe, barely anything. Let me try to get this reflection for you to maybe see it. It's really, really hard up at the very tips. However, it is uneven. It's a little smaller on this side than this side because the clear coat seems to be built up kind of near the tip. But I don't know if that matters or not. And if I look here at the actual dovetail, I don't see any markings. I don't see any issues there. I don't see anything to be concerned with. I expect this stuff to last very long. I expect it to look good for very long as well, because generally speaking, the clear coat on Win&Win limbs are, nice and hard and top notch. The materials they use are excellent for what the purpose is here. Many other manufacturers can't do it because of where they're made. As far as the graphics are concerned and the looks, they're not as sharp as the MXT-10 limbs in my opinion. I personally like matte limbs a lot better than gloss limbs, but the graphics do look sharp and it complements the graphite black on the ATF-DX. I keep wanting to say Meta-DX. So many letters and different things. It's hard to keep track of these days. Like I said, I think this is a great feeling bow. Win&Win absolutely nailed it, hit it out of the park for 2023. As far as vibration properties are concerned, there's no secret as to why these harmonic dampeners just kill vibration. Personally, I really like this, and I can't wait to get my hands on a 27-inch riser so I can shoot this bow as a bare bow. Like I said, I am going to be working on that foam versus wood comparison video, a head-to-head comparison to finally lay it to rest as to what limbs are better or potentially what the differences are between wood and foam limbs. I've got these MXT-XP limbs that I'm going to be putting head-to-head against each other, so I'm excited about that one. If you have any questions that you want specifically addressed, or you're not sure what the differences are between wood and foam limbs, please do comment below and let me know what you want to see there, because it does help me out when you guys ask questions in regards to future videos that are coming up, so I can kind of pay attention to those things as I'm recording the video and then keep that in mind when editing, so that way I do my best to address those kinds of questions. I have my own questions, as far as speed, efficiency, feel, mass, weight, things like that are concerned. But if I forget something, it always helps if you comment below and let me know what you're looking for. If you like this video, consider sharing it. It really helps this channel out, get the word out there that I'm producing this type of content for archers. Nothing existed like this when I was a kid, and I'm doing my best to give back to the community as much as I possibly can, to give you the straight facts and straight information that just isn't available elsewhere. Consider supporting this channel. Head to the links in the description below for many different ways on how you can support this channel, whether that be for apparel, purchasing books, equipment, coaching, supporting me through Patreon, donation buttons, becoming a YouTube member. Any of those things genuinely help this channel out. And at minimum, if this video helped you or you liked it, consider sharing it. It helps get this channel out there by word of mouth, and I can't thank you enough for supporting this channel.